everyone, and welcome back to Your Favorite Movies. It is episode 16 here, and I'm joined by Benji Sandergaard. I hope I said that right. And Benji, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, we've been talking about doing this for a while for the series. I think that we've been talking since maybe even episode 2 or something.
At
We were
least,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I'll jump on, and then it's been a while, Steph
Yeah.
working with all these different people, but now I'm finally on, and we're going to talk about a movie that is controversial. It's a movie that isn't in a lot of people's favorites list, and it's for sometimes good reasons, sometimes uninformed reasons. And we're talking about A Clockwork Orange, which it is definitely one of the most controversial movies ever made. It's slightly misunderstood too. You'll ask anyone who is vehemently, or I didn't say that word right, but anyone who's against the movie, um, you usually ask them like why they don't like the movie, and it's usually for a reason of, oh, that one scene, or oh, those two scenes. A lot of this is one of those movies up there with like Fight Club and stuff like that, where the movies are really smart, but they've been misrepresented with a few generations of like viewers, that
Yes.
at this point it's like people are like, it's either a joke or like people don't see it the way they should see it. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's definitely one of my favorites. Currently I have it in my top 4 of Letterboxd, which is is it's interesting to see people's Letterboxd top 4, because yours is definitely different than mine.
Mine
um
is only 2 movies.
yeah,
That's the thing,
it's
is it?
like, what? Because I'm a part of groups on Facebook where we talk about movies and stuff, and it's almost like a personality trait. Is like, what's your top 4 on Letterboxd?
Yes, and like there's a bunch of videos of people like talking about other people's top four, like on YouTube,
Yeah,
on stuff like TikTok and all this, like, and
that's trash.
yeah.
Yeah, I've
Oh
seen
yeah,
a
they're
lot
they're
that
the
are
most
like,
annoying videos ever on
oh
TikTok because
yeah,
people are like,
well,
oh,
it's
pretentious.
it's the film bro shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
I was on Alex Laba's stream, and someone said that one
Nice.
of their favorite movies was Taxi Driver, and they basically apologized because they like Taxi Driver. And I was like, man, you don't have to apologize for liking Taxi Driver. Like,
Yeah, it's one of the
the
best
thing
movies
is
ever.
that you're not a film bro for liking Taxi Driver. You're a film bro if you're following trends on what's popular and then telling people they're wrong for believing something else, gatekeeping basically.
Yeah,
And every time I see those videos where they're like, screw this guy's top 4 list on Letterboxd, it's shit. These movies are bad. I'm like, "Oh, that's film bro culture. Why do we let that exist in the movie
yeah. I feel like
sphere?"
there's
Like,
yeah, there's good and bad like film bro stuff. There's like what people like. I was actually talking about this with David from Flicks Talk on 2 episodes back. I explained to him what film bro was, and what a lot of people say is if your favorites are like Pulp Fiction, The Dark Knight, Fight Club, stuff like this, and
yeah.
like Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, and all
Mhm.
this, and they're like, oh yeah, you don't actually have a
Any
taste in movies if
Tarantino.
it's
Yeah.
and yeah, any Tarantino
Yeah.
film. And they're always just like, you don't get an opinion for movies if those are your top
Mhm.
four. But I'm just like, no, that's not right.
Film bro culture is fun because I've definitely ran into even just people on the platform here who are just film bro energy. And it's just
Yeah,
like, dude, man, just be honest. You like Marvel films, just be honest about it.
exactly. Like Marvel is good. They make lots of
They're
money
like,
for a reason.
They're
They're
like,
good
oh,
movies.
Marvel is bad. Yeah, people saying that just because Scorsese said that Marvel was cinema, then it's definitive. It's like, but dudes, like, at least in my opinion, Martin Scorsese is not the best director. Why are we holding him in this?
Well, and
Whatever
the
he
thing with
says
that
is the
is that
Bible, you know?
And the thing about that, like, I think he's one of the best. But even with that, like, he even said in a thing like, this is obviously a whole other topic, but like, he's like, yeah, I don't
Mhm.
I don't know the difference between DC and Marvel, and he didn't say that they were bad. He just said that he compared them to Theme Park Rise. But again, that's a whole
Yeah,
other
and then of course
topic and
Film
all
Bros
this.
ran with it and they made it into
Yeah,
this whole like, he's saying stuff, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I like when people are honest, when people will say that, oh, my favorite film is, because I think some episodes ago you had someone on talking about Crazy Stupid Love, and I'm like, that's
yeah, it's
such
Sasha
a
on.
like Yeah, film fans would never say it. When you look at like a film bro
Yeah.
opinion, they would never be like, "Oh, Crazy Stupid Love's my favorite movie." And
Yeah.
even like,
Yet it's a
some of those
5-star movie
films
in
that,
my opinion.
yeah, well, like in it's one of those ones where it's so unconventional, but I love that people are like, "Well, this is my favorite." And I think that I don't know. I even when people say stuff that I personally am not a fan of, I'm like, I get that. Like, I feel like because it's like film is subjective, you know. When we take out the subjectivity of it, that's when it becomes like. Because let's be real, Citizen Kane isn't the best movie ever made, even
Yeah.
though film school will want to tell you that. Like, most people that hear that are gonna be like, yeah, well, it's not my
Yeah.
favorite.
It's like it's a great film, but it's not like you never really hear any. I've never heard someone say it's their favorite. One of them, sure, but their
Yeah.
favorite, I've never heard it. I probably won't. Like if
Mhm.
I could see reasons because it is a great film, I think. But is it the best of all time? In my opinion, no. But that's kind of like a whole other topic. Basically, we just kind of went on a little rant there, but that's totally okay. It's
Crazy.
it's cool to do it here. But kind of getting back on track. Do you remember the first time you
Yeah.
saw the film?
It would have been like when I was 13, because I think when I was 13 or 14 is when I really, maybe 12 too, when I saw Clockwork Orange, it would have been like 13 or 14. But I know that when I was like 12 or 13, I really got into more deeper cinema and stuff. Like, of course, I saw my first horror movies. You got like Psycho, Jaws, Halloween, you got like Exorcist. Like, I saw movies that were, that opened up my mind. And of course, with that came The Shining and 2001: A Space Odyssey. And like basically all of Kubrick's filmography happened. So I did see it when I was like 14 or 13. But like as a teenager, it was one of those movies that, because the thing about Clockwork Orange is that it's not really a plot heavy film, it's more of a character film. It follows a simple plot of, Alex and his droogs who are doing shit that's like really bad, and then he gets arrested, and then he gets reformed, quote unquote, and then he goes back to normal because, message of the movie being that we make choices, or we make the choices. No one can change how we act except ourselves. Like in the scene where he's talking to the pastor or the priest, and he's like, yeah, change comes from inside and stuff. And I didn't like when I first saw it, of course, I wasn't looking deep into film. I was just like, do I really enjoy this film? And I think I felt like it was a long roller coaster ride that like was going places where you're like, oh, I don't know where it's going. Same with 2001: Space Odyssey. The first time I saw it, I was like, wow, this movie's boring as shit. But as I've seen it as an adult, I'm like, I like it more. Full Metal Jacket's the same way. It's like his movies, I think when you become an adult, you fully understand, like, oh, this is what it's about, and it's actually really good. And I think with the Clockwork Orange, it's very much it's like you're in a dream, the aesthetic
Yeah.
of it, the imagery,
Dystopian universe,
yeah,
kind of.
the way the scenes tie together, it feels like it's a dream, you're in some psychedelic dream. And I think that I wasn't down with that. But of course, I recently, because I've been watching the Kubrick films, because at some point, I keep postponing it. I feel bad. The video was supposed to come out a while ago because I just suspected I was going to binge Kubrick's films. I want to rank the Kubrick films, and the first one I watched where I was like, okay, I'm rewatching. I didn't watch The Shining because that's like a yearly tradition for
Yeah,
Halloween. I
same.
watched Clockwork Orange, and that might be my favorite Kubrick film because I
Ooh.
rewatched it and I'm like, wow, this movie's really good. And I fully understood what the movie was trying to say and all that. It's one of those movies that's so interesting. It's so unique, every Kubrick film's unique, but it's so unique. It's no one's ever made a film like it before it and after it. People have tried, but they'll never get to that. When was the first time you saw it? You said something before about like when you were 12 you saw it and it was
Yeah,
like kind of traumatizing.
I saw it. It'll kind of like the year when I was really starting to get into movies. Like, and I was about 12 years old, at least from memory, and I rented it from the library. I remember I did the same thing for 2001: A Space Odyssey, just because like I had heard it was a really great film. I watched it. It was one of my first like logs on Letterboxd, and I was like, I remember it's like I'll put it on the screen, but I remember like the review was like 4 words. It was like really good, but I'll never watch it again, or like really disturbing. And I do want to
Yeah.
watch it again because I haven't seen it since then. Like that, of course, that was a while ago, but part of that is
Mhm.
because it is coming out on 4K, and I do
Yeah.
want to rewatch it. And I would have bought the film this year, but a few months ago we were in like full, not full lockdown, but almost full lockdown here in
Yeah.
Ontario, and in Walmart, which is where I get basically all my Blu-rays, like the only stuff they had were like the essential stuff. So they had the
Yeah, like the
movies
7
they had the movies wrapped
Yeah.
up, and then one of them was A Clockwork Orange. So I was like, damn, like I do want to
Yeah.
get this one because it was like $8 on Blu-ray. So I was like, here in
Mhm.
Canada, that's very rare, especially where I
Oh,
live.
100%. Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
crazy the differences. But I was like that, and then I asked one of the workers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you can try to get it online. And if you've ever used Walmart's online site, it's shit.
Like
It's
I
so bad."
tried to yeah, I tried to pre-order Last of Us 2 because it came with a bundle with like add-ons and stuff, and I literally ended up canceling my pre-order the week before because they didn't even ship it yet. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't even, they had copies but they didn't ship it yet. So I canceled it and I walked in right when it opened the day it was released to get a copy because I was like, I'm not waiting like how, because even with the way I have a buddy on YouTube that he's done stuff with other channels and stuff that I've also been in contact with, and he had this whole saga on his channel where he tried to get a PS5 and they pretty much took his money and then we're like, we don't have a PS5, and it was like, what the heck.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
it's like, it's their online is not great, their app isn't great, so I get that. You would have probably bought a Clockwork Orange, essential Blu-ray, and you would have came home and it was like something different, like some Disney movie. It's like, what the heck. Because of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some Walmart slander for you guys, but yeah, like I would have bought it and I would have rewatched it then. And I remember like
Mhm.
being in like some stores and like seeing it, but it was like $15, and I was like, am I really gonna watch this movie over and over again? So I've kind of put it off.
Yeah.
But now that we were talking about this before, now that it's coming to 4K, I do want to own it because more
Mhm.
now come. I am a collector. I have 2001 on 4K.
Yeah.
I have The Shining on 4K, which is my favorite Kubrick film. That's kind of an answer
Yeah.
people a question people probably want an answer to. That one's my favorite. And I own Full Metal Jacket on Blu-ray. That one I don't think
Mhm.
has come to 4K yet, unless it has.
It has.
It
I think
has? Okay.
4 or 5 months ago it came to
Oh shit.
4K, and it's a nice
Oh
looking
yeah, yeah,
4K.
yeah. I now that you're saying it, it's clicking in. Yes, I remember seeing like
Yeah.
the Best Buy steelbooks and all this. But yeah, what about the movie though makes it kind of your favorite or one of them, we could say?
It's yeah, well for me it's like the proper wording I guess for me is one of my favorites because as I said before we started, I have about 75 movies that are 5 stars on on Letterboxd, so it's like I have out of the 2510 or whatever movies I've seen in my life, I have like 75 that I'm like, yeah, this is my favorite. I don't know, I feel like for a lot of movies they click, they click for a certain reason, and I think that it's a mix of the messaging about the choice, like we make choices in our lives. It's something that deep down, Alex in the movie, he's terrible, but also it was bred because of the society around him. Everyone else is terrible too, from the doctors to the policemen to his family to the dude in the wheelchair that locks him up in the attic and causes him to jump out the window. Like the difference though between them is that Alex outwardly admits that he likes this stuff and this is like a part of his personality. Everyone else tries to hide it though and pretend like they're not bad. And I think that it also talks about the idea of they try to, like in the movie, they're trying to change him, but they're not trying to change what caused him. And I think that it's a relevant movie. Like there's a lot of relevant elements to the movie that I think as time has went on, especially and also as I've become an adult, I've understood that yeah, this movie is really smart, despite the fact that when it came out, it people didn't like it, and Kubrick got death threats and pulled the movie from theaters. And people were like, "Oh, it's controversial and stuff." I think that it's controversial because it's real. You know, obviously
Yes.
we don't live in a world where we have milk bars and everything that happens in the movie, but like it's relevant to a social stand, and that's just one element to it. You know, the acting's great. You know, put Malcolm McDowell on the map, and I think that personally it's his best performance, and he's done really close ones, like have been close to that good, but it's never been to that level. Even the score, like the score is by she's the same composer as The Shining, and it's
Oh,
just
really?
the synth mixed with the Beethoven. I think that it shows the two sides of reality. Like this movie is so influential. Like something I just realized because I was looking up at like this movie and stuff, and I was researching because I saw it a bit ago, but I didn't see it for a while. So I was listening to video essays before I did this and stuff like that. It's so influential that Travis Scott and Kanye West have a track, and the sample is the introduction song from this movie, where it's one of the best unreleased songs from both of their discographies. And it's like they take like the heavy synth drone, and they loop it, and they do like raps on top of it, and I'm like, it's just amazing, an amazing discovery. And this is all because of the iconic score of the movie. It says, yeah, cinematography. I think that this is one of Kubrick's most, one of he's have a lot of magnum opuses, 2001, The Shining. I think this is one of his best films. I think for me at this moment, I'm rewatching all them, but for me at this moment, it's my favorite, which is wild because The Shining was always my favorite before. But I think it's because now I'm rewatching them with a different lens. I'm like, wow, these Shining might not actually be the best one, Even Paths of Glory is one where before I watched it in school and I was like, wow, this is really good. But I rewatched them like, this is like 10 out of 10, man. Like Paths of Glory with Kirk Douglas. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I think that as an adult, I'm really understanding the filmography of Kubrick more, and I'm understanding as a writer and as a filmmaker, I think I'm looking at, I'm like, this is spectacular work. Like
Yeah.
this is why people love him. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a bunch of reasons, and there's still a ton of Kubrick films I have to see. I still have to see Paths of Glory. Eyes Wide Shut has been on my Netflix watch list for
Eyes
as long
Wide
as it's
Shut
been
is
on
good.
Netflix. I've heard that one's really
Yeah.
good, and Tom Cruise is a phenomenal actor in my opinion. Doesn't get enough love for his like non-action performances, like films like
Oh yeah.
Magnolia. Magnolia
Well,
is
well,
phenomenal, and
even a movie that's action that he doesn't get a lot of credit for is Collateral. Like that
Collateral. Oh my
performance is a
God, he's so
spectacular
good.
performance. Like he
He's
plays this hitman, and it's just like it's a great polar opposite to Jamie Foxx's Taxi Driver. And I'm
yeah.
like, wow, this is it. Yeah, no, like his filmography, even some of the more basic ones like Spartacus and Lolita, are still really well made films. Like
That's what I've heard.
other than maybe his first two films that were like before he got studio funding and stuff, those you can feel Kubrick, but they're not like, because he's got two, and then he did The Killing, which was his first big film. So like the two before that are like more like hour long films, they definitely feel like, beta of
Yeah.
Kubrick. But once you got to like Spartacus and The Killing and 2001 and Lolita and stuff, you're like, oh yeah, he's really good. Like
Yeah, like
this
he
is
knows what he's
some
doing.
good filmmaking. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and for those who are wondering, I do think this is a really great film since it has been a few years since I've seen it, and I feel like when I rewatch it, I will like it more. And like, there is that part that of like it is a very disturbing movie. I don't typically get
Yeah.
disturbed by movies, but there are plenty of scenes, and I can understand if this is like I don't really get if people say this is a bad film, but if they
Mhm.
don't exactly like it for the reason of it watching it, there's a ton of brutal stuff. I
Yeah.
definitely understand that
Yeah.
because I mean, there's that scene that we talked about before, the singing in the rain scene, which is
Yeah.
very brutal.
Yeah.
And but
Yeah.
like I think as we were kind of talking about, we'll kind of close it off with this. It's kind of the misinterpretation of it, or the real
Mhm.
point of the movie. It's an anti-violence film that is
Mhm.
presented in the way
Well,
of
yeah.
showing the
It
violence.
shows. Yeah, it shows how society, at least in a sense of even our society at this moment, like all throughout history, we've been almost like desensitized to violence. And it
Yeah.
shows that if we're too desensitized, there will be teenagers running around and killing people and assaulting people,
Yeah.
like, and just doing it as a fun Friday night tradition. Like it's a movie that it is like people, like I get people looking at even the scene, the rain scene, and being like, yeah, that is disturbing. I agree. But I think that if that's your write off of the movie, then you're not looking
Yes.
at it deep enough. Like if you're going to sit
Yeah.
there and say, well, there was one scene that had like, because controversial content, if you're going to sit there and say it's a bad movie, then it's like, no,
Yeah.
there are a lot of other movies that have the same type of material that are also great movies.
Yeah.
Wes Craven's Last House on the Left is another one where it's like it's important to the story, and it's so much more than just one scene.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this film is a lot more explicit with it, and I think
Mm.
that the reason the film it like impacts you so much is because it does feel so real and genuine. Like you do feel like you're watching people get assaulted and all this stuff, and again, it's
Yeah.
horrible. But when it gets to the end, and when he is put and like they're trying, like I think probably the most iconic scene of the film. There's a
The eye
bunch, but
drop scene.
the eye drops where his eyes and
Yeah.
they're forcing him to watch the violence
Yeah.
and then he starts
Yeah.
screaming like and even with that scene like that actually had damaged his
It's
eyes in real
Well,
life but
yeah,
like
I just heard that. Yeah, basically because of the fact of the stuff that they had to hold his eyes up, it's more for people lying down when they're doing procedures. But
yeah.
because he was sitting up and he had to like sit there, there was a moment where he
Close like
moved and
this.
it ripped his cornea. Like it literally
Oh
like scratched. And he was out for I think 3 days, he said. Like there were 3 days where he didn't shoot, but he came back and he was good. And they kept shooting that scene, but because of
that's Kubrick for
because
you.
of yeah, well, like Kubrick, for good or for bad, for a lot of bad, with a lot of the actors that have dealt with him have had like a lot of
Shelley Duvall.
issues. Yeah, 100%. Shelley
Feel bad
Duvall,
for
like
her but
seeing,
yeah.
I feel bad for her. Like seeing even some of her like lately, like recently, she was on Dr. Phil a few years ago, and she was telling stories about stuff she believed, like conspiracies, basically. And I'm like, that all goes back to her doing Shining with Kubrick and
Yeah.
like how hard he went with people. Like I think that it's something common we see, great directors but really bad people in real life. Alfred Hitchcock is the same way. Great director, but he was a crazy dude in real life that is, their films are great, but them as artists are hard to work with. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the thing. Like, there's a ton of actors like that, and for people like I know for sure when some person randomly like stumbles across this video, we're not hating on the director and
Oh
their
yeah. Fuck
job
not.
as the film. We're
Yeah.
just saying that the stuff they did, like the torment on some of these people,
Yeah.
were bad. And again, this was a while ago, and people will always use that argument, but it is still important to recognize.
Mhm.
But I mean, kind of finishing out with the film, it is a phenomenal film. It is so well
Oh
made.
yeah.
I definitely understand if people don't like it. If like
Mhm.
I feel like it's more so one, at least for me, that you kind of appreciate than you're like, oh, I
Mhm.
love when this happens. Like I
Yeah.
love how it's shown and presented in
Mhm.
a realistic way. And like the
Yeah.
cinematography, obviously Kubrick is very much known for his film cinematography. There goes my dog. She was whining earlier, so I was throwing Pringles at her. You guys probably saw that. Um, but like even in the film, like some of the stuff and some of the
Mhm.
obscure objects we'll say in the film. They're just presented so
Yeah.
close to the camera. You know exactly
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. For those who have
Yeah.
seen it, they know.
When he
And
goes into it's the yoga scene with the cat, with
yes,
the house of
yep,
the cats. Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. That
Yeah.
scene, that one has always been there. And just one little small detail I remember noticing because I remember this is one of my first posts on Instagram on my Instagram story for my Ewan Reviews account is that in one of the record stores early on in the film,
Yeah.
you can see the 2001: Space
2001
Odyssey
Space
score.
Odyssey. When he's picking up the two girls, he's acting suave and he's like, "What are you girls doing tonight?" They're, yeah, right behind him is 2001 Space Odyssey, which at that time, that movie wasn't well received, So it was obviously it wasn't a nod of like, "Hey, look at this for the general public." It was more of a nod of, "Well, this is another Kubrick film," you
Yeah,
know,
it's smart.
because of yeah, because I remember seeing that, like I rewatched it, I'm like, oh well, there's 2001: Space Odyssey,
Yeah.
and then at the same time, I also saw other albums that were popular at that time. I'm like, oh, Wow, those are
Yeah,
cool.
if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, Dark Side of the Moon was there, but again, this is a while ago. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I'm just thinking of it, of the year and all that. But I have to thank you for coming on, Benji. We
Oh,
talk all the time on Instagram. He likes
yeah.
to send me all these new like movie news posts, so it
Yeah.
helps a lot. And of course, I'll put all his links down below. Make sure to follow, subscribe, everything like that, and join us next week for episode 17. Thank you all for watching. Tell us your thoughts on A Clockwork Orange. Is it one of your favorites, or do you dislike the movie like some people? See you guys next
Nope.
time. Over and out.